you.
Hey guys, this is Ash, and today Joe is joining me. We are going to be interviewing with Branson Grant in regards to his comic book series and currently book series, The Protector Saga. Today we're just going to jump right into the questions so we can have a nice discussion. Looking back on your Instagram channel over the years, you have primarily published and did the book all on your own, and that is quite a feat. When did the idea of creating a world of your own by becoming a writer originally start?
Yeah, I've been working on it for I want to say over like 5 or 6 years now, and I've just been really immersed like, my whole life into like a lot of different mediums, from comics to anime to cartoons, everything. And just later on, I started really looking into these things, and I couldn't really find a character and medium that I like 100% could relate to, or I felt their story progressed in a way that I was like, happy or saw myself in. So I just decided that like I was like, why don't I just create my own? Like, and at first it started as a hobby, and then later on, as I really got into it and started really working on it, became more of one of my passions. And it's just been a great process, and I've really enjoyed doing it up to this point.
Awesome. All right, so the next question that we have for you is, in your book, there's no chapters. It's just one straight read. What made you decide to go with that?
At first it was just my writing. I just didn't want I felt with chapters, I felt it's like they're stopping points, and most people like pick those as stopping points. But I wanted to make just one consensual thing of you just reading and just not wanting to stop reading the book and just wanting to keep going to the next page and wanting to find out what happened next. Also it was I used this book as a jumping on point to test, my fan base and everything like that, see if they actually wanted to this was a story they wanted to keep, reading and everything. See if my vision was something that intrigued people and wanted to get people into the story. So I wrote it much shorter than I initially planned. I initially planned on writing the entire Protector Saga in one book, which was like, initially was going to be like it probably would end up being like 1,000 pages plus. So like it was a big daunting task after I finished. Once I got like, I want to say 75% done with the first part of it, I was like, this is going to be a really big project, and I probably wouldn't have been able to finish it in the time that I launched it. I'd probably still be writing it right now, in all honesty. And I didn't want the fan base wait anymore. So I was like, if I make a smaller, just jumping on, bigging point to it, but like I need to maximize what I can get out of it and make sure I get enough of the story of it. Wanted to do something that would make the fans able to see what was going to happen.
Yeah, we definitely liked it. And you're definitely right about not being able to put it down, because I went and was like, all right, I'm going to read a couple chapters of this. I'm going to get to a good chapter where I can stop, and then I'm going to put the book down. And I read over 40 pages before I finally forced myself to stop. And Ash, when she read through, I think when she finally stopped, she was over halfway through with the book. So the method definitely worked.
Well, I'm glad.
So another intriguing question is, what made you decide to go with a book as well as working on a comic?
Really, it was just it was more of the fact that I knew people don't always cross mediums. I know there's certain people who read novels who've never picked up a comic book, and I know people who read comic books who've never picked up a novel. So I wanted it to be adaptable for people, so I could just be like, here, like any genre of people or any type of person could just pick this up. And also there was a whole thing with expense, me not being the primary artist and everything on the project and everything. When I decided that, then it's a lot more money to produce a comic than it is for me to produce a novel. Like I've already literally made back what I've made in producing the novel, and I'm nowhere near someone. I'm still in the process of doing everything with the comic, especially since there's so many other people involved in the comic. It's literally right now like 5 different people working on it, and I'm still missing one more. So it was really on this on time. It was just I wanted to get something out to the fans, and I wanted to do it as fast as I possibly could. And doing a novel was the fastest way. And just creating something that would be easy to read while still, you know, posting my work and everything like that so that they could follow along and see what and actually get a visual of what these characters look like.
Yeah, I know your Instagram was a really cool part of seeing it. Like as we're reading, she was constantly coming up to me, Joe, is it this picture? Is this the one, the character? Also, so you mentioned the comic. We both know about the comic. You've announced already on your Instagram and gone in depth about it. Is it going to be released by issues or by a trade?
It will be released by issues. But as far as right now, I'm only gonna finish issue 1, and issue 1 will the success of that will dictate the sales of issue 2, because until I get it backed by like either a company or, you know, a larger benefactor, or, you know, the fan, or I take it to like something like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or something like that. It will just be the first issue, and then I will work on issue 2. As my artist Carlos, I did a live stream a while ago, and he says he wants to do the entire series. Like he wants to stay on the project as long as I'm doing the project, which was great for me to hear because he's an incredible artist. And a big thing I have is in comic series, especially with Marvel and DC, they like to give you really great artists in the beginning of the books, and then they just drop off after that. And then
Yep, there's so many times we've started an issue or started a series, and halfway through the art looks totally different, and we're like, this is a little kind of very odd.
And it's really off-putting, you know, to people when you're buying something, especially when you're like invested in this great story, and you're just like, the art really suffers. And I get it, because like now developing my own book, I get how expensive it can get to keep certain artists on, like, you know, why they don't let Jim Lee do 160 issue, you know, covers, you know, and stuff like that, because it gets really, really expensive to be paying for art, you know. And I get why comics are as expensive as they are, because you're trying to make, you know, that money plus the profits back and everything like that, what goes into it. So the fact that he wants to stay on the book is, you know, flattering to me, and it's really, you know, it's made me want to do this even more, that he as an artist at his level is interested in this project and is loving these characters. Also, I got to do cover artist. I haven't announced it yet because I want him to get a little further in what he's done. He sent me over like the dynamics of what he wants it to look like, and I'm just trusting him because his work is really good, and he's done a lot of amazing work for Marvel and DC. So I'm not even questioning what he wants the first cover to be, and he just sent me over what he thinks, and he already picked his favorite character. So like I'm like, okay, well, you know, do what you do. So he's doing a really great job, and his work's amazing. So I know it's gonna come out really good. So I can't wait.
Okay, real quick too, because since you can't talk about the cover artist, can you let us know the name of your artist and some of the stuff he's worked on, so that way if anyone else wants to check out and kind of get get an idea of what his artwork's going to be for your series?
Oh yeah, his name is Carlos, and he lives in Mexico, and he's worked on Green Lantern in the newer series. I think it's the Rebirth editions. He's worked on Green Lantern Rebirth with like Jessica Cruz and Simon Bass. He's worked on Super Sons. He was one of the artists on there when the series started, which was really good. He's just done some incredible work, and really, like, I read the Green Lantern series, and I went to a con a couple years ago, and I met the inker on the project, and I was just like, the art's amazing, I love it. You know, he's just like, oh yeah, me too. He's like, me and Carlos are really close friends, and you know, we worked on a lot of projects together. We've enjoyed every one of them. So like, he gave me his information. He told me to reach out to him if I wanted to talk to him. So I like messaged him for a few months, and then he finally got back to me. And he was just like, yeah, I have some commissions open up. I was like, what's your commissions look like on a title? And he's just like, at first he was kind of reluctant because he's still working with DC and Marvel, and you know, so he's still turning out work for them and everything like that. But I told him I didn't have a timetable, like, and that was kind of crucial to him deciding that, because like most people, they think like, I need this in 6 months or, you know, whatever. But like, I told him I didn't want him to have a timetable. I was like, yeah, if you have free time to work on a panel, then work on a panel. So I was like, he's like, all right, if I don't have a timetable, then it's not a big deal. So I was like, okay, fine, great. Because then I launched the book like 4 months after I got him. So like, he's been working on it ever since. And he's just been doing amazing work. Which you can go see on my Patreon. If you go over there, I've posted the 4 panels that he's worked on so far. So you can go check that out. And it's just incredible. Like, when he sent me the first, like, just like the first little box that he was working on, the level of detail, way beyond what I thought that he was going to do. Like, I was just, especially me being independent, like, I was not expecting to put so much basically like heart in the project. And to me, it was like, because I gave him that like window of time that like he didn't have to like rush. There wasn't like a deadline or nothing like that. He really got to sit down and work on the project and really put himself into it. So I felt that was really great.
Yeah, that's actually what I was just going to say too, is that having him basically whenever he can do it is definitely going to make the quality come out a lot better, because he doesn't have to worry about crunching or anything like that. He can work on it casually, which is definitely going to make the art stay steady and consistent throughout the whole series, where sometimes if they're crunched, it can kind of hinder it a little bit later on. So that's really good to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Because even when I do it myself, like, I feel like it's one thing, like, I'm just not big on deadlines even with me. And it's why I don't like panel work, because there's just so much detail that you have to get in there. And then sometimes, like, even the best artists, they just sometimes they cut corners, or they just don't do their best work because of, time. And it's like, I don't have time to draw every piece of paper on every corner or every little thing that's going, you just kind of, you leave it out, because I mean, you're just like, what is important? But like, some of those details to me are sometimes the most important, because you think of books like Alan Moore's Watchmen, like, they never wasted space in that book. Like, that book has so much stuff going on in it that would seem unimportant, but fills the book and it fills the space so well that you really feel this world is real. It has like real weight. And the first page he sent me, that's exactly how I felt. Like, there was no way you could take your eyes off of any panel and not like notice everything that was going on in it. So I just feel he did an incredible job, and I'm deeply lucky to get him and work with him and work with everybody who's in the project right now.
I know, that's awesome. Like, warning for listeners and viewers, we will be going into some spoilers of the book. But to start that off, I am actually very excited to see the artwork, especially for the beginning, the prologue section, where you just had to be awful and murder everybody. I am ecstatic to see how that looks in art form.
So what I really liked was about all of the characters that you had. They were very diversified. And what inspired a lot of those ideas and the characters that build around Brandon as the main character, all having these different backgrounds and diversities throughout the entire book.
Honestly, it was just stuff from my real life. Like, it was my friends, and I just feel I'm lucky to have all these people growing up with me and everything. And I felt like I, wanted to pay homage to that, because I feel in a lot of books, like, main characters, they have like maybe 1-2 people that they have from like when they were in high school, and then like the only people they knew out of a school of like 800, and it, like, it didn't make sense to me. And then like same thing, like even in their later years, they work at a full office of people, but they meet one person in that office. Like at work, I know all my employees, like every single one. So like it didn't reflect real life to me for like stuff like that to happen. And I get it kind of from a certain standpoint, because it's like, well, then I'd have to draw all these different characters and them meeting and talking to them all the time. Yeah, but that's real life. And if that's what you're trying to portray, then that's what you need to do. So I wanted to reflect that Brandon had a super diverse people around him at all time. And just the fact that every single one of these people, I felt like in real life, your friends kind of make up who you are. The things you hang around, the things you do, they make up a big deal of it. So I wanted Brandon to have like, this big group of people that helped shape his life, especially after such a traumatic event in his life, and the fact that he was able to get past that and, build friendships and everything like that. So it was very important that like some of my friends were representative in this part of it.
And I can see that too, because in the beginning, when he is in school, you get a variety of his friends, but then you can really narrow down, okay, Scotty is his best friend. And then hopefully this crush Heather, So like you do see all of the characters and their development, and you can get that feeling of, oh, I feel like if I knew this person, I would be able to talk up to them like automatically. And I did like that.
So I like the idea that I agree with her. I like the idea of how many characters you're introducing. Might be too early to ask this question. I probably shouldn't be asking this question. But as the series continues to grow, do you have any possible ideas or thoughts to branch out to other characters other than just Brandon?
Oh yeah, like the series will never 100% just focus on Brandon. The first book I wanted to, just because of the fact that he needed to be the front runner of it, because he is, you know, the driving force behind the story. So I felt it would have been kind of weird if he wasn't prevalent in most of the entire first issue. But like as the series progresses, you'll see there'll be a lot of issues where it'll be, you know, chapters on chapters where he's not there, because it's the world is just as much a character in this as Brandon is. So a lot of things are going on while he's not there. So I had to show it. Like the second book, which I'm currently writing right now, and I'm like 45 or so pages into it, and most of it takes place with my brother's character, and that's because Brandon was basically established in the first book. This one kind of lead more towards him and what's going on with him, and there's a lot going on with his character, more than most, I would say, people with abilities. He is in the first book, he is the character Strike, so there's a lot going on that you wouldn't normally deal with somebody like him, that I have to kind of unfold and develop so the reader can really get a grasp on it and what's going on. So it's been really good, and I've been talking with my brother and doing planning periods with him about the character and taking his development. And in all honesty, like the book wouldn't even be, the second one wouldn't even be as far along as it is if it wasn't for him, because he just came up with so many great ideas and so many things that he wanted to do with, if he had these powers, and what he would be doing during this whole thing. So that's one great thing about the book, is that I have real people that I can call on when I need to talk about their characters and situations and things that go on.
Okay, so for the most part, it'll just be like Brandon taking a step back. There won't be any branch off books or series or anything. It's all going to be the Protector Saga, just one whole thing, right?
Yeah, it'll pretty much be one continuous story. If I ever go back or anything, they would be like very small books that I would end up doing. But that would be only once I finish the entire main run of the Protector Saga. I would think about going back and doing other stuff like that. There is only like one thing I plan on doing that's absolutely definite. There's the story in there where Omar, he talks to Brandon and he tells him the whole story about Brandon and Brandon's ancestor Charles and Zaspy, that whole thing. I do plan on going back and super expanding that and like doing really in-depth thing about like their life from the time they started to the time that led up to the very end and everything like that, because like there's a lot there. And in all honesty, when I started writing, that was the beginning. It was going to be all of that. I shortened it and left so much out of it. I was like, I feel like I was cheating people, and
Yes.
I would do another like whole book. So I'd be doing 2 books of the same thing, and I felt like you'd be like, well, I learned all this in the first part, and like this is just kind of like seasoning on the book. So I just left a lot of it out so that it would give me room to like do a fully fleshed out version of their characters.
Makes sense to have them more, have your readers wanting more, like we clearly do, than to have them kind of a little tired of everything, risking that chance. I mean, we wouldn't get tired of the universe, but like risking that. I mean, while you're thinking about stuff, it'd be nice to have kind of some backstory for the characters you killed in the beginning.
Now see, look. I got a big thing on that, and I actually received a fan art of Momentum, and he looks great. The guy did a great job with it. You know, it was really cool. So, and I plan on through the saga opening up a little bit more about them. I may even do one of them too, because I do love them. They're great characters. I didn't expect to like them as much as I did, because I did specifically create them for that one event. But I ended up just liking the designs, and as the more I created them, that's like what I initially didn't do a lot of backstory for them, because I didn't want to like them. And end of the series, I liked them so much, I just felt so bad about the whole thing, and I was like, well, now what am I gonna do? So yeah, but it still had to happen. It happened, but
yeah.
I like the characters, and they were really cool, and I love the designs and everything about them. And I really, Carlos has already drawn Momentum, and he looks incredible. Like it's like an epic like Flash running pose, and it's so good. I was just like, man, you know what you're running into. It's just really good. It's really good. But man, he just has a way of bringing my work to life that like I can't imagine anybody doing.
Yeah, I remember I read the story. I started the story before Ash did, and reading the descriptions for all these characters, I'm like, okay, these are probably gonna be some of the main characters. And then like 10, 20 pages in, they die, and I'm like, okay. So when I like gave Ash the book, I'm like, hey, be prepared. This author's kind of a jerk. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, you'll know when you get there. And all of a sudden, I just hear Ash slam the book, and I was like, what? She's like, Joe, you're right. He just killed all the cool people right in the beginning.
Don't because my son, he finished the book a couple of weeks ago, and he felt the same way. He was like, why? Like, what? He's like, my favorite character is Liberty Girl. And I'm like, oh.
Favorite character was Liberty Girl.
But like, I mean, there's a lot coming in the story. Like, in all honesty, because I just randomly get like plot points for the very end of this series, and it's so much. It's just like, man, dude, I can't wait till I get here. Like, it's gonna be a heck of a ride. I'm telling you. By the end of the saga, it's gonna be crazy.
And you're starting off great, so we can only imagine how it is when it's done.
So you're telling us about how a lot of these characters are basically built off of friends or family members that you know for however long. But what did you feel was a good amount of actual personal description of the character, and then also to like maybe add some more depth to them in regards to a character that you're trying to build?
In the beginning, I just wanted to at least visually paint a picture of what these people look like. Just give a brief description that I felt that most people could pick up on and kind of get a decent amount of viewpoint of what someone looks like, especially. And then like it came to the same thing with like mannerisms and like how they respond to questions, and that person seeing like, hey, like, oh, this is how this person acts and what they do. So just kind of flesh that person out like as an everyday person. And I would also ask the people like, yo, how would you answer this question, or how would you interact with this, so that it felt like it was coming from a real place. I say probably the biggest regard into that was the Miss Looney character. I had this like speech I wanted to give, but I wanted it to feel really heartfelt and like genuine. So I asked her like, like, let's say this kid is going through this, and you have to be the one to, talk to him about this. How would you, talk to him? At first she was like, oh, what's wrong? Like, did something really happen and you need it? Like, I was like, no, it's nothing like that. I was like, I'm right. And I want to know, it's your character, and I want to know how you do it. And she was like, oh, okay. So she gave me this like great speech, and I pretty much used it. So like, because it was so good, I was like, I don't even need to change any of this. Like, this is perfect. So like, I used the entire speech, and it was really good. So that was just a big part of it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So at one point, you kind of start venturing off of, and away from, the United States, and we kind of end up in Jamaica. So how did you decide that you wanted to encompass, like other islands or, another type of location?
Oh, I just felt it was necessary. Like, it was definitely necessary, because I felt like if I didn't go anywhere else outside of his own like comfort zone, that I wouldn't be building a fully fleshed out world. Especially since like there's just later on there's so much more to come. I didn't want it to feel like it was out of place or anything like that. So it was necessary to encompass that. And at the other part of it was like I felt like he needed ending the book. I was like, I didn't want it to happen in New York. I felt like that wouldn't really make any sense. And I didn't want it. I couldn't. I was just like, this is the only location that would make sense, is that if this event happened on his home island and having to deal with this problem like that. So I put him there, just especially like dealing with like my own reserves about it, and of the island and then how it's ran and everything like that. It's just like going back and seeing things not the way they were. Because I kind of felt that way when I went back when I was like 18, like, because the last time I was there, I was like 10 or 8 or something like that. I went there, and it was like my grandparents were there, and there was carnivals and fields of, grass and all types of stuff. It was great. It was a great time for me to be there. And then when I went back 18, like my grandma's house was like almost completely dilapidated. You couldn't even really recognize that it was even there. Certain parts of the island I just didn't recognize and stuff like that. It was just stuff that happened like, over time. But I mean, like 10 years is a long time to be away from anything. So it's like, it's not going to be the same when you go back. So I wanted that like feeling to kind of reflect in Brandon going back after not going back there in like 6 years, because it's just not the same place that he remembers, and it's not what he did. So I wanted that to convey through there, but kind of in a stronger motion that he had to deal with.
Okay. So then you have physically been there, obviously. So then were you born and raised in Jamaica, to kind of give like more of a backstory to, your creation of this character?
I was born in New York, and then I was there for like about a year. I was born in like the Bronx, and then like my parents were like trying to like branch out and like buy a property and stuff like that. So like they had a lawyer up there and who was a friend of theirs, and he like told them about like this land in like Florida that was going way cheaper than it was up north, because everything down south is much cheaper than up north. But so they bought some property down here, and they started like flipping it, doing that, like developing it and then like moving it forward. So, and then they decided it'd be just easier if they lived here. So they moved from New York and moved down to Florida. And then, but at the same time, I was going back in between Jamaica because like my brother had been living over there. He's my younger brother, so like he lived there, and so we go over there and see him and everything like that. So like it was just a good time. And like, but I primarily lived in Florida most of my life.
Okay. That makes sense.
So, as Ashley mentioned too, the book, the characters are traveling around a lot. Are in future titles, is there going to be more traveling, or is these few sections going to be the main sections?
Oh no, there'll be like so much more traveling, like all over the place. Like it's different cities in the U.S. and different places overseas. Like it's going to be like everywhere, because that was another thing I had a problem with. Like most comics are self-contained to like New York or Metropolis or wherever they, base themselves out of. They're usually like held captive to like the cities that they're in. So that's not really something I wanted to happen, because I felt like there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, especially in the beginning of it. Like there's the Island Kings, and there's, Jamaica, and there's just so much going on, and then Brandon moving and everything. So like it'll be way more as the saga. Like by the end of the saga, the entire world and maybe even beyond that will be explored.
So then let's kind of continue in regards to the characters and their development. Sometimes you might get feedback, from someone in regards to the design, or maybe just how they are emotionally feeling about this character. Do you then take that into consideration, or do you decide to like just not use it, or you end up changing a whole character in their development because of their point of view?
Sometimes it just depends on where it's coming from. If it's coming from the person who I have the character based off, sometimes it'll play more prevalent role, because sometimes it'll change the story in a way that it kind of needs to change because of where it was going. Initially, I said, when I was first developing this book, a lot of the characters kind of fell flat to me, and they kind of felt like they were just there as tropes more than actual people. So more so when I started asking people like what they thought and like how they felt, it actually opened up the story in ways that I didn't think about, and it made the story more accessible, because I felt like this became more of a 3D person. So I'm always definitely open for suggestions and things like that. Sometimes you have to just stay true to what you're doing, though, just because I have a vision of where I want the story to go, and it'll kind of conflict with that I won't be able to set up. That's kind of like what me and my brother are doing right now. But we haven't really ran into that. Everything he said, I've pretty much been able to use for the most part and keep it forward or modify it in a way that it's still able to hold the story on what it is. I think the biggest thing I've ever done was a costume design for the Protector. When I initially did it, it was just the flag over him, and it was just that. That was the whole costume, and there wasn't like anything in it. So then a couple months or so later, I did like these lines outlining like his muscles, stuff like that. And I was like, which one's better? And I asked my fan base, and they like overwhelmingly chose the one that was harder. And I was like, oh, great. And I was like, I'm glad y'all like it. In my head, I'm thinking, now I'm going to have to draw these ridges every time I draw the character. So I'm like, oh, that's great. So, but I mean, they liked it, and then I've done it ever since. And I had a guy do a mock-up of the outfit as like if it was real on my brother, and mine's made it look so amazing. And I was like, it'd be functional too, like when he's moving, like he'd actually be able to move in it. And I was like, I was like, yeah, okay. So
I'm not sure if this is what you mean, but like when you said there's the flag over him, like the one Captain America suit where he had no suit, it was like the flag pinned on him. Was it something like that? Is what you meant?
Well, no, it was like it was the same costume, but it was like it didn't have like there's line work around like his chest, and there's like a kind of a V thing right here, and then like in the elbows there's like ridges to help with like moving and stuff like that. So like it's more practical and functional than it was like needed for a comic. Like in a comic, you don't need that because you can draw them in any pose. It's not going to matter. But like if I were to like make this suit in for like a movie or something like that, that type of stuff would be needed to make it look more, better. So that's what it was like. It was more of like an aesthetic thing to make the costume more functional. So I was like, that was a good idea, and I kept it, and I've kept it ever since the thing. And I've decided to like kind of implement stuff like that into every creation I design.
Okay, cool. And I started out this question with feedback, and I had a branch off question for that. As good as feedback can be sometimes, there's also a lot of negativity that come with feedback. So how did you deal with if you had any negativity that came from this project?
I honestly haven't had much. I think I've only had two cases where like I had to block somebody on Instagram because they just became like a little like extra for no reason. And me personally, I'm just the type of person that's like, all right, if you don't like my work, I'm sorry. But it's your opinion. Like you're entitled to your opinion. And I mean, but like I set myself up for that when I started this project. The minute I decided to step on a social media and that I was going to start posting my work and making this project available for other people, I have to be prepared that not everybody's going to like what I'm doing, or that everybody's going to think about what I'm doing is right, or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, I'll say this, I've largely gotten like 99.9% all support on this project. It was like just 2 accounts where somebody had a problem with something I did. And the thing is like, I was super nice about it. I try to be as much as I can, because I posted a picture, and it's honestly one of my favorite pictures even to this day. I posted a picture with the Protector with the Justice Society of America, because I'm a big fan of old heroes. I just love just older people who have powers. I don't know why. It's just been my thing forever. So I posted this picture, but and I gave credit to Jorge Jimenez, who's an incredible artist for DC. He worked on Justice League here recently, and he did Super Son, and he's just done everything. He's currently working on Batman right now. But he did this picture of Green Lantern and with the Justice Society. So I was like, I just love the Justice Society, and I'm a big Green Lantern fan. So I did a mock-up where I inked over his work, and I was just like, I tagged him in it, said I just did this ink up of this character, because it would have, trust me, if you look at seeing the picture, it would have took me like so many months to draw it by hand, and that was a big digital is because of time. So I did it, and I said all that in there, and this guy was like, you didn't draw that, you can't draw, and just started attacking me about it. And I was like, I said I didn't draw it initially. I did an ink over of it. And, and I was like, I still took the time to learn the technique that Jorge used to do the, all the coloring techniques and everything like that. I still did all that. I did all that, but it wasn't good enough for him. And I was like, I don't know what else to say. I'm not claiming that I drew this picture. I didn't do the background. I even said I didn't do the background. So he just was not having it, and was made this big thing and tried to attack me. And he even posted on his page and was like, fake artist trying to claim credit. I was like, and then it was funny because then a bunch of my fans saw it and was just and then attacked him for. I was like, look, guys, I appreciate it, but this account is for I don't want crazy battles or stuff like that. I was just like, he's entitled to his opinion. I apologize for him, and I apologize that I apologize for him feeling that way, but it wasn't good enough. But it's whatever.
Yeah, because I've seen your artworks and stuff like that you've done, or someone else has done. You've always gave credit, because like I remember the button one was the first one that came to my mind.
Yeah.
When you had the protector holding the button.
Yeah.
It's always of like, hey, it's referenced from this, it's done by this. Like, it's never like, hey, this is my original picture.
Yeah. Because like as an artist, like I know how that would feel. Like I know how that would feel for somebody to take credit for something you drew. Like, and then even if somebody did one of mine, like I wouldn't care. Like as long as they tag me in and say, hey, big fan of the Protector, decided to do this. I'm like, it's not a big deal. Like to me, it gets to a point if someone was trying to make money off of it on my work. That's when I would like have to say something. And even then, I would still try to be as polite as I can about it. Because like, I mean, what's the big deal? It's just work. Like. It's not detriment to my character. It's not anything like that, unless you're trying to use it in a way that is that. Then we have a problem.
If anything, it's basically just free advertising.
That's, in all honesty, that's all it is, man. Like, and I don't know. It's just weird. And then somebody else tried to get me for tracing, and I was like, I posted the original, and the weird thing is this was actually something I did draw like by hand, like. It took me a while, but I drew. And like I even sent him I even went so far, he's like, email me the proofs. I was like, okay. So I emailed him the sketch, I emailed him the ink, and then I emailed him the colored, and then I emailed him holding it with like, you can get an 18 by 17 print out and put cardboard over it and print. I'm like, all right, that's a lot of work to try to fake art ability, but okay. You could do that, I guess, but I don't have time for that. Like, no. Like, so it just became, it wasn't about the work. It wasn't about admitting anything. It was just about somebody trying to argue. And then after that, I just don't have any reason to talk to you because you're not mad about the art anymore. You're just trying to fight with somebody about nothing. And I have better things to do with my time than, argue with people.
I've had a couple instances of artwork I've done, and it was like, when I first started drawing, I was always taking pictures I liked and drawing them over and but adding a bunch of stuff to it. And I took a bunch of different Batman scenes and added it all together. So, and like one character was completely freehanded. Like I didn't have anything. I just did it. And someone was like, you just traced like 4 different pictures and put them all together on one. And I was like, no, they're all different proportions. Like this wouldn't even make sense.
Yeah. It's just crazy for people to be the way they are. But it is what it is. You can't
internet.
Can't appease anybody. And then at first it bothered me. Like the last one really bothered me because I was like, dude, I drew this picture, like I actually took. And you're like, why are you so? But then like you have to think, man. I had so many supporters, man. I have so many people. Giving me such feedback. I'm like, why are you letting the one person out of so many other people bother you? You're going to have to deal with this your whole career. Like, I was just like, yeah, all right, this thing's done. So you just got to move on and realize you can't make everybody happy.
Oh, yeah, because even like looking at all your Instagram posts, every comment and everything like that, it's overwhelmingly positive. Like, I don't think I've seen any, if at all,
no,
even remotely negative comments. Like it's all been really positive, which is awesome.
Yeah. I'll see what happens with this next one. I've been working on a project here recently. I've been working on it recently, but I had it for probably 5 months and I haven't posted it yet. It's pretty cool. And it's another ink over, but cause I just haven't had time to just draw stuff lately. Cause I've been focusing so much on writing cause I definitely don't want I don't want a 2-year gap between the books. I want it no less than a year gap between every book. I think that should be acceptable enough because most movies are like that. But actually, no, most of the movies 2 or 3 years. But I feel a book I should be able to get release every year. I should be able to release a book and be done, or at least be close enough to where I can release it by that time. So I've just been focusing on that a lot because I've been watching a lot of interviews and stuff like that. And this guy, Mark Miller, who he's a writer. He's worked with Marvel and he has his own company. He's worked with Netflix and all type of stuff. And he's just he was initially, when he started doing what he was doing, he was like, I wanted to draw and write, but he felt like if he was doing both of them suffering and he wasn't able to put 100% on. I mean, there's some great people out there, don't get me wrong, that can do both. and are incredible at it, but I'm just not one of them. And well, I was like, I like doing concept, like what the character's going to look like, and have them take over whatever they do. And even sometimes they make improvements on things like that. Like Carlos, he did that. Like he did little nuanced things to momentum and stuff like that, which was really cool. But it was not stuff that I suggested, but it looks really dope. So I'm like, yeah, that's staying in there forever. So he's a great artist, and I'm going to let him do his thing. And I'm just going to continue to keep writing as much as I can. And I do drawing just as my professional like hobby and like part of what I have to do now.
Yeah, because I know like I've drawn a lot too, and like my first thought of when you said you got another artist, I was like, as much as I love your art, it kind of makes sense because like drawing conceptually is really cool and fun, but drawing in different angles and fight scenes, it's almost being like a director of a movie. You have to make sure the camera's set up at a specific spot, or else it can completely take away from that scene.
Yeah, and then like especially like the worst part of like panel work that I don't like is that the most important thing is everything that's going on around the characters. Like the background will make or break a panel to me, because it's just, you can do a great picture, but man, when you do an incredible background to go with it, that picture is like 100 times better. And I took drafting like in high school, and it was just like the year one was great. That was all great. But like as soon as they moved into year two, I was just done. I couldn't do it. It was getting into all the nuances and everything and measurements. And it was like math, but drawing. And I was like, I didn't want any of that. So like, I just couldn't do it. Like, to me, being a good background artist is like, it's just so much detail that's like beyond, regular art. I like just drawing for the fun of it. And that's like people, costumes and stuff like that. But like buildings are all the same, just lines, and there, so many of them to make what needs to look like it is. And to me, it just never interested me to do that. So like, I would just be like, I can't do this background. So it was great to have somebody who's amazing at it. And that's funny, because that was the first thing he sent me was a building. And I'm like, oh yeah. I was like, yeah, he's got this.
So then I am curious then, because right before we were talking about, the buildup of these characters, but once we fall in love with these characters, do you plan on doing any crazy plot twists where I'm going to lose certain characters?
I actually have the answer for that. Look at the first 40 pages.
That's true.
I think it's like, I'll give big companies this. Like they create characters and they want you to love them and think they're always going to be around. But like most of the characters that have always been around now are just like, they're just like, you don't feel any weight in the story. Like I can't imagine reading a Justice League book or an Avengers book and thinking any member who's been a mainstay on this team is going to die. The only person I'm worried about is the guy who joined yesterday. That's the guy I'm worried about, because he's the one who can die. Like he's the brand new character that this writer just came up with, and he has no value in this team except for the fact of the shock value that he can die. And then, but the thing is like even that becomes unbelievable, because it's just like every time they get a new member, that's the person who dies. Right. And it's like, it doesn't matter anymore, because like one, he's gonna die, or he's gonna become a mainstay and he's never gonna die. So, or
if they do kill him, they'll bring him back in a couple years.
Like it's stuff like that. It's like just become acceptable now in most comics, most even novels and stuff like that. Like nobody thought Harry Potter was gonna die in his series. Like nobody, if he would have died at the end of the book, they'd be like, whoa, like that probably would have been pretty big if he would have.
Yeah.
If he would have. Anything like genre, like the Hunger Games, the Twilight series or anything like. If any of the main cast would just start dying, it would have been more detrimental to this. It would have been more realistic to the story, because not everybody can make it. I can't say that you won't lose or whatever the case may be, but I'll just say nobody in the protective world is safe, because nobody in life is safe. So you have to grow with these people and understand that it's part of life. But that same thing, it's like, to me, it's like, it's not about living forever. It's about remembering what was important while they were alive, and the example they had, and what effect they had while they were alive.
Okay, so basically then you're saying, because now I'm concerned.
Everybody dies.
No. Basically, this family that takes in Brandon, you know, like they're older.
Oh, they're definitely dying.
They're wiser, you know, like, are you saying that because they're in relation to, you know, someone that you know and love, you know, if, let's say something were to happen to them, would you give them like a good ending in this series as well then? I'm just scared for these characters now. You're scaring me. So now I just want to know everything.
After those first 40 pages, every single character I met, I mentally put a timeline of when they're gonna die.
You were wrong.
Oh man. Well, like in that same retrospect, yeah. Like if something were to happen to them in real life, I would definitely it would probably reflect in the writing. It may not be in the same retrospect or anything like that, but it probably would happen. There is one character that something did happen to that I haven't gotten to yet, but it'll be a while before that happens. That has recently passed away, and she was like, to me, like a third mom to me because of everything that she had done to me, and it was probably just one of the saddest experiences I've had to go through in a long time. But I was glad. I was upset that she never got to read the book because she had passed before I had finished, and that was also another big thing for me of finishing the book. There's a lot of people in my life that are in it in the first part of them that I wanted them to know what they meant to me and what their experiences and what their just overall just being their very presence being in my life and their examples meant to me. So I wanted the book to reflect that, and for me to say it in more than just words, and me to show that like this is what you mean to me. So it was sad that didn't get to happen, but I was glad that it got out when it did, and so many.
But
other
it's
people.
also cool though at the same time because majority of your fans know that these characters in these books are based off of real people. So yeah. Even though unfortunately someone may pass, your fans can still see them, and like in a way their story kind of lives on as long as you let them live in the Protector Saga.
But you know what? Like, it even gives another depth in regards to these characters in this world that you're trying to build. It's very personable. And that I feel is great to see, because sometimes people just write to write. Sometimes they're actually doing something similar to what you're doing. But I feel the way you're building this world is completely different than I've ever read it. I mean, just by the way you wrote it as well is completely different. And that is what makes it very intriguing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first thing you've written, right? Like there's nothing else you have published.
Oh yeah, this is my first published work that I've gotten to do, and it was a very learning process, and it'll definitely help with the second one and doing it. I hope by the time I'm ready to launch it, I've opened up a lot more opportunities. But it was a great process, and I love the fan response from it. The fan response has been incredible. So many people have gotten it, and so many people have just. Like literally since the book has dropped, I've gotten so much fan art, like incredible amount, like way more. I've done Instagram for like 5 years now, and I've got more in the last month than I have in 4 years. So like it's been, and I've gotten a lot. So like it's just crazy that so many people have sent me so much work.
I know, like me personally, I've been wanting to do one. It's just finding the time to actually sit down and be, like you said, to find time to sit down and draw from scratch. Because there's been a couple times I'm like, there's a couple different characters I want to try drawing from your story. From the pictures you sent me or the descriptions that I'm reading in the book too. I'm like, I want to try drawing these characters. These characters are really cool.
Yeah. And though, like too is, I haven't really seen very many pictures of Omar or Zasby. And I love them. So I would love to see more artwork.
Zasby's gonna die. he's correct, isn't he the mentor character?
No, Omar is the mentor character.
Omar's the mentor. Yeah, sorry. Omar's dying. That's what I meant. Mentors always die. You don't get attached to mentors. They don't live long.
But I want to see him.
They have a short life expectancy.
The thing is, you say that, but like I recently did. I don't even understand why this happened. I posted this picture of Omar, and I fan casted him as an actual actor, like somebody who I really admire as an actor. He's a great actor. And like, I don't know why, but like in a day, it was like over 1,000 likes. And like so many people were just like so much like, make this happen. This needs to happen. Like, and I was just like, yeah, because I felt like he was just underused in Hollywood, and like most of his characters are like either two scenes but like I felt he was just so amazing, and I felt like he's just too good of an actor, and that he would bring to that role like what Omar is. So like I'll say that Omar will be around for a while. Like he'll be around for a while.
Why doesn't mean forever.
He brings a character universe that like needs to be there because he's been around so long. But I mean, you can kind of tell that like in the first book, like what he's kind of going through and everything like that, being around that long, that like he has his own like kind of clock going for him and everything like that. Because I mean, most people would like pick to be immortal, but not really understanding what that means to be immortal. Like to see so many people basically, you know, have to die around you, your friends, your family, you know, your own kids turn to grandkids while you're, you know, saying, so it's stuff like that, that like the gravitas of the situation that most people not in the mental gravitas would take behind, you know, being something like that. So Omar has a lot of weight on him. He's been around for a while, and he's been, you know, dealing with what he's dealing with for a long time. So, you know, like he's a great character, and he's just been doing what he's doing for a long time. But I feel like he's just, for right now, is his time, and he has a lot to bring to this story right now.
All right, so then let's move on to the fact that, you know, you're writing and you're also drawing. What advice would you give people who are trying to do something similar as you are, you know, to kind of give advice on how we should, you know, do something similar?
Like a new writer or a new artist, for example.
I would say, you know, with anything, it's always practice every day. It's get as much information as you can, get things from different outlet. Like me personally, like I like hearing stuff a lot. So like I watch a lot of YouTube videos and on different stories and writing and, you know, plot development and things like that. There's just a lot of great people out there that you can listen to who like, you know, basically almost teach classes online about these things that are just like really supportive. And also you want to listen to like fan bases on things that you're currently doing. Like I listen to a lot of review on books, on like comics and different things like that, and listen to what people don't like about them and like how stories are progressing that they just didn't like, because it gives you kind of a thing to where you shouldn't take your story. Not necessarily shouldn't, but it gives you a guideline on like these are problems that people have been having in the industry and they refuse to introduce, you know, refuse to address them. I feel like the industry is kind of bad about not listening to their fans. You know, these are people you want to buy your book and buy your product and everything, but you don't listen to the people who are doing that. Like that, to me, never makes any sense. So I feel you should definitely take these things into account. As far as like if you're developing your own story and you're trying to do something, I would definitely say develop the story first, develop the characters first, and what they want to do. What are they trying to accomplish? What's the end goal overall? And then create a world and understand that the world that the character is in is just as important as the character, and every character is the main character. I made the mistake when I first started at writing it just from Brandon's perspective, and every character, not Brandon, was just kind of there for a small reason, just there to answer questions, just to be there as a rebuttal. So like when I started posting stuff like art and stuff like that, people were like, oh, this is my favorite character and this is my favorite character. But then when I started reading about it, I was like, this character's not that interesting. Like you didn't even, or his powers aren't even that cool, or whatever the case may be. But so it's like this character has a fan base, but I didn't do that character justice. So it's a big thing for me to go back and redo all of that. So opening up the characters and making them more accessible and making them people was really important. And, you know, really getting behind every character and not just your main character. Another thing I would say, if you're doing something like a comic or a book and you're, as far as like marketing and stuff, just be like wary about it and don't really try to put much money into it, because building the story is more important than like making shirts and lanyards and all that stuff like that. Cause you're trying to promote something that you don't have anything for. Like if I go to somebody and be like, here's a shirt of my character and lanyard and here's a pin and a sticker and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, well, where's the book? And it's like, oh, well, I haven't finished that yet. It's like, well, what am I wearing? You know, like nobody's going to, I don't have anything to tell anybody, you know. So creating the story and finishing that aspect of it is what you should focus on before you start working on everything, and try to like basically set small goals for yourself while you're doing this. You know, like if your small goal is finish 3 pages a day, well then you'll feel like you'll accomplish that, and it'll make you want to move on to the next goal and the next goal and the next. You'll feel like you're doing stuff. You don't want to set unattainable goals like I need to have the whole book finished by the end of the month. Like you're gonna feel like a failure, and you're gonna want to give up because you only got 5 pages in and you didn't, you know, even get good pages. So you want to set attainable goals that you know you can do to keep your project moving forward.
Okay, then that makes a lot of sense.
And just another random question: what ways does your family help you, kind of, to keep going and like encourage you with this project?
Oh, they're amazing. My family, like they've all gotten the book, and then like my mom, she bought like 3 copies and gave them to like different friends, and like my brother just bought one. Like he's in Japan right now. He's overseas, and he's like telling everybody about it. And he fights UFC, so like he tries to like he wants to take short forms so he can like, you know, like promote it and stuff. Like I'm like, you're so dumb, but like he's really good. Like my family's really supportive, especially my other brother. He's, you know, helping me with the writing right now, developing his character. And I'm not gonna lie, like his character is 100 times cooler now that he's been a part of it, because I honestly like I love writing him now because there's so many aspects of it. It's so open and it's so like amazing, and because of him, he's just character so much better. So they've all been helpful in some shape or form whatsoever. The only problem they have is that they're not all in it. So like they my third brother is in it, and he Strike's character, but I haven't introduced any of the other ones anything. So like I'm just like it needs to be the right way, and they all need to fit the story. And but like it's the same complaint I have with a lot of people. Like they're just like, I've been your friend for this long and I'm not in here. It's like, yeah, because I couldn't, if I introduced every friend I had from like high school till now all at once, like it would have took the first 100 pages would have been me giving dialogue to that. So it's a lot, but I mean, it's everybody's been so supportive, and it's just been an amazing process through this whole thing for it.
That's awesome. I think you had one more question, right?
Yes. So my final question, obviously, is going to be about Brandon and Heather. Like, they're going to be together at one point, right? And like they're gonna stay together, they're gonna have kids, they're gonna get married, because you're like giving us these characters from like beginning to end. So like are they going to be together?
Yeah, I can't answer that because it'd be the same thing. I don't believe in like at least at this point in life, because like Brandon's character starting out was 18, so like I haven't had just one relationship since I was 18, so like I didn't want Brandon to have to reflect the same things. Like I feel the same way like about a lot of different characters. Like they meet one person and like that's it, and like somehow it just keeps working. Like it's an aspect that sometimes does happen like in life, but I feel like it was so overly done. I feel like it just wasn't enough. Like it just didn't make sense, you know, from my personal perspective, because I'm writing from my personal experience. So like I can't say yes or no. But at the same time, I will say like Brandon has a lot, you know, going on, and he'll have a lot in his life that he'll have to figure out when it comes to like dating and balancing that with being a hero, you know, this whole, you know, daunting thing that he has over his head, you know. So it's a lot, and it's a lot for anybody to have to like people right now have crazy things with like people with work schedules, you know, like if you work at night and you work at day, or you work in the morning, like that's a hard act to balance in a regular life. Imagine somebody at the drop of the hat who has to jump out the window and go, you know, fight some monster, you know, go save the world, you know, on top of regularly working and, you know, doing everything else. Like you can only imagine the strain that would put on a regular relationship. So it's a lot that people have to deal with. So and some people just aren't built to handle that. So yeah, I wanted that to reflect in the writing and how he has to go through his relationships, and like dealing whether he's even going to tell them, you know, that, yo, I'm a hero, you know, just because you just can't tell anybody, you know.
Right.
And, you know, now they have this information, you can't go back on that, you know. So it's a lot.
Yeah, because that's like, that actually brings up a good point. Because like even Omar was like, do you really want to trust Scotty in knowing, you know, like, can you actually trust him in the end? And Brandon's like, well, yeah. If I'm remembering the quotes right. But like basically that's how it was. And that makes it more realistic. Like you have to do question like, are you actually going to like stand by my side or will you not? So
Or
like
die.
Joseph. Oh, Joe.
It's a lot, and I also felt the same way. Like the biggest thing for me from that was the series Smallville. Is like I love that show. So like, but like the whole like first season, he's like having to lie to so many people and make up so many excuses, and it's like people he's lived with his whole life, and like, but having to constantly like just lie to them every single day, like, oh, I was late, you know, because I had to go, you know, do farm work or whatever the case may be. And it was just like, yeah, this is your best friend, though. Like, you've grown up with him since you were 5. Like, I think he can handle it. And even if he don't, like, you got to think he would be able to, like, kind of. But at the same time, it is, you still have that, you know, that little bit of regret. Like, you kind of can understand, like, what if this person one day slips up? What if he gets drunk and he's just, like, yelling at the top of his lungs and stuff like that? Or like, yeah, pick the car up. I know you can do it. You got the powers and stuff. You know, like, or you know, your enemies try to use these people to get to you or things like that. You know, like there's a lot of there, but like at the same time, I was like, Brandon's young. He's, you know, he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be lying to his friend. He doesn't want to like just disappear. Like he's grown up with this person most of his life. He's not trying to, you know, just end this relationship right now. I mean, he believes he has to save the world and everything he's doing is important. But at the same time, he has his own life and he has to be able to dictate what he does
Yeah, you answered my question.
I have a good answer too. They're gonna get together, and after they get together, she's gonna die.
I don't even know why I listen to you anymore.
It's basically what the book said. Every time you start liking a character, they die. Look at the first 40 pages. All right. So while we wrap up, Grant, we'll let you plug your stuff. Where can people find you? Where can they support you and all that stuff?
You can find me at Grant Branson 50 on Instagram and Twitter. On Facebook, I'm at Branson Grant, and you can go to my Patreon if you want to see exclusive content. They're the first 4 pages I've got so far. I'll start posting the cover art once that starts coming to me there as well. So the first tier is like I think $3, and then you'll be able to see everything that comes up, and all the other tiers are, you know, more content and everything like that. I got to do more on the page, but yeah, that's pretty much it for me. It's been an amazing journey. I'm so glad to do this with you guys. You guys have been an amazing supporter to me. I appreciate it, especially since like you were the first people to contact me about this and everything. So that was really cool.
We appreciate you taking the time and enduring all of our horrible issues. So for all of our viewers, this interview was supposed to go up before even the corona hit. And we had too many tech issues and having time, things like that we just weren't able to do it. But we finally got it.
Yeah, I'm really happy, man. Like I did realize that even happened, so I was like, this is crazy. But I give the 2 of you because of the fact that, you know, y'all were one of my 2 first people that even posted the picture with the book. I think it was like top 5 or something like that, but y'all were really early. I was writing book 2, and I got to a point where I needed like a news reporter, and I wanted I wanted it to be like an up and coming news, or somebody who's like out there doing things that the other news outlets aren't doing anymore, and kind of like reverting back to a more like hands-on thing. And I was just like, I should just have them do it. Like I should have, you know, them as the, you know, the 2 people who are working together and everything. And the fact that y'all were married, I was like, oh, I can incorporate that into it. And
I'm gonna be getting yelled at all the time.
I was like, all right, so that's where like I got into it. So like you 2 will be in the second book. You'll be able to.
Oh, in the second book.
Yeah, in the second book, yeah, y'all will be in it.
Oh, that's awesome. See, like when you messaged us, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a while from now. This is gonna be anytime soon. Wasn't expecting second book.
But yeah, Appreciate it, and thank you for all the information and everything.
Yeah, definitely. We really appreciate you jumping on with us. Anyways, so you guys all know Grant stuff now, so go follow him, support him. Thanks for watching us, and don't forget to do all that YouTube crap, like and subscribe and all that. We appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time.